Tell us about your most cherished memory from the field of play.
Fordham, let's see. I think it was that mile, that indoor mile, senior year. I had come off the 1,000, or no, maybe the 1,000 was later that day. But I had come in second in the mile the year before, and then won the 1,000 junior year. And so for me, wanting to do the double victory was really important to me. And that race was tough. It's on a flat track at URI. The UNC Charlotte had a really good runner. I can't remember her name, but I was just kind of waiting for, I think sitting on her. She took out the lead. She was more of a distance runner. And I think it was 400 to go. I took the lead and I just tried to run away with it. And I didn't really know what was happening behind me. I didn't know if she had stayed on me or not. So I was kind of running really hard at that point. And so for me, it was a little bit scary because it was like, if she comes up on me, I have no other move. Like I laid it all out on the table in those last 2 laps. But it turns out I did gap her, and it turns out that I did open up the lead quite a bit, and was not trying to run a meet record, but that effort led to a meet record. That effort led to me matching my PR that had been on a much faster track. So for me, I was really proud of that effort because it was really honest and sincere, and I worked for it. Then I came back later that day and was able to win the 1,000, which the 1,000 I was much more comfortable in. The mile for me at that time was still an event that I knew I could run well, but I did not think I did not know I was the best. Whereas the 1,000 and the 800, I was pretty confident, at least in the conference, that I was the top runner. But the mile was still not set. So yeah, I was proud of that effort.
In your career, what was your favorite event?
The 1,500 ended up being where I saw the most success. So that is my favorite event.
Toughest event for you?
Toughest event, 3K. I think the 3K was the toughest event, especially as I got on in my career. It turned out that was much more a miler's event, in my opinion, than a distance event. So you had to run it pretty hard and for almost twice the distance as a mile.
Biggest win?
My biggest win, I think the Penn Relays Olympic Development Mile in 2015. I had run the Penn Relays 11 years in a row at that point, from high school through college to post-collegiately a couple of years. And that was kind of an upset win. And I think it started, that was kind of a turning point for that season that led to me finishing third at the US Championships and making the world team. So yeah, that was probably my favorite win.
Biggest disappointment?
There's 2, but I'm going to point to one at Fordham, the ECAC championship, coming off of the outdoor A10 championship. I finished second in the 1,500, and had run a relay and had a good meet there. I won the prelim round. I was the top seed coming into the ECAC final. I had never won an ECAC title. I was second 2 years in a row indoors. And everything was lined up for me to win that race. I was a top seed coming out of the prelim. I could run just as fast as any of the other women on the line. And I still to this day don't know exactly what happened, except that I went out with the leaders pretty hard and then slowly faded to the back, and I ended up finishing last in that race. And I was devastated. I remember going back to the group in the gym and saying, well, somebody's got to be last. And I was trying to make light of it. And then immediately broke down in tears and ran off to the bathroom to took a while to compose myself. But even at that moment, I was not ready to joke about it. I was heartbroken. So that was a tough loss, but I think I learned a lot from that too, that you're not unstoppable. Everyone is going to have their moments, and that one was mine.
Who comprised your cheering section?
Lots of people. I have a very large family, so they didn't often make it to the meets in person, but I had a very large support system. My immediate family, my extended family, my teammates were really, really supportive. My friends off the team were really supportive. So I was very grateful. I had a lot of people, people talk about haters. I had a lot of people who loved me, and it didn't have to do with how fast I ran. They loved that for me, and they appreciated that, and they enjoyed that. But I knew deep down that it was not related to my performance, and that gave me a lot of security and a lot of safety to go after big results, because they were going to be in my corner in my cheering section no matter what.
Kerri, were there any other athletes that inspired you in the various events?
I was not very good at paying much attention while I was in high school and in college. So I started to grow in awareness in college of, some of the greater runners out there, but I just kind of looked within my sphere. So, my competitors were always, people who drove me to compete and to bring my best every day, because I was up against some pretty solid runners. And then some of these same women I was competing against after college. After college, I started to engage a little more in the sport as a whole. And so I was, as I started competing against, Jenny Simpson and Shannon Rowberry, they were probably two people that I looked to that had significant results and consistency at the highest level of our sport, both from college into post-college to making US teams. So to me, they were the standard. Their consistency, their success, the way that they competed, their tactics were the standard. And so they were two that, while I was competing against them, were two that I really looked to as kind of an example of who I wanted to be and how I wanted to be as an athlete.
Now talk about weather, running outdoors in all kinds of weather. Do you have any horrific experiences to pass on?
Yeah, we had a couple of cross-country races that were after and during some pretty significant rain that were just mud baths. We were covered by the time we finished, and could barely see with the rain that was going and the mud that was splattering. And everybody on the line is experiencing the same conditions. So you can look at it the one way, that this is really not ideal and not conducive to a great performance, or you can say, well, I have the same opportunity to perform as everybody else that's here. So for me, I actually learned to embrace hard conditions. I enjoyed them more than I disliked them, because if anything, it's going to get in somebody else's head. I know I can control my response to it, and I got to a point where I was pretty good at that. So the only thing that was going to happen with bad weather was throw somebody else off their game and give me an opportunity to capitalize on it. So yeah, we ran through some pretty tough experiences, but that's part of the sport.
Any injuries at Fordham?
Any injuries?
Yeah.
A little bit. I had shin splints freshman year, but I look back and I'm like, that's totally my fault. I wasn't taking good care of myself. Was able to run through that. I had a quad strain my sophomore year that I was able to train and race through, but I did have to take some time off for it at the end of the season. And then I had a foot injury that wasn't too bad, but it did make my training a little bit inconsistent senior year of college during the cross country season. So I had to battle a little bit of confidence issues with that, wondering if, my magic senior year was in jeopardy because I wasn't, getting the full training that I had hoped for and expected. But thankfully nothing was long-term. Everything resolved itself. Everything took care of itself. The training room took good care of me. So yeah, I did nothing that really impacted my ability to train and perform long-term.
Record you're most proud of?
I mean, the indoor 800 is my only individual record at Fordham. And so Lauren Gupiza, who had like every record from 800 to 10K while I was there, was like a legend in our minds and in reality. So to break that record was really, really special. And then, like I said, the 8:10 record for the mile, that senior year indoor, because of what went into it, is one I'm pretty proud of as well.
Graduation day. Tell us about it.
It was hot. We were on eddies and black robes, and it was very hot. It was a special day. It was pretty surreal to get ready with my friends in the apartment, get our robes on, walk onto campus for one of the last times. But I remember enjoying the day. I don't think I got too caught up in that it was the end of something. I think I really felt that we were celebrating a really great time of our lives. And so yeah, graduation day was special and fun and hot.
What was first after graduation day in your life?
Well, I wasn't done competing yet. So I wasn't done on campus. The NCAA regional was still a couple of weeks away. So I literally right after graduation went back to my parents' house. We had a little graduation party, had a cake, and celebrated. And then I was back at my apartment and I was training, you know, a normal practice schedule for the next couple of weeks, and then flew to Indiana with my coaches to compete at the regionals. Following that,
How did that go, by the way?
not as well. It was not the fairy tale ending I had hoped for. I went in as the 12th seed, top 12, make it out to nationals. So in my mind, I had a very real shot at making it to the national championship. And the way it works is there's a prelim round and a final within that regional. And I was I raced not as poorly as ECACs, but similarly, you know, just didn't feel what I had felt at the A10 championship and all the races leading up to that. And so I kind of rebounded. I was able to close a little bit past a couple of women, but I was the first one not to make the final. And so we were in Indiana for a couple of extra days because we were expecting me to race one more time. And yeah, that was an interesting experience. It was tough. I went in and expected one thing, and then it just didn't get it done. So yeah, no fairy tale ending on that piece, but it was still a nice trip to Indiana with my coaches, and I was it didn't change how I felt about my experience at Fordham. Like, I was still incredibly proud of what I had done. I was incredibly grateful for everything that I was given throughout the experience. So had left college a little bit dissatisfied, which maybe led to me continuing running when I wasn't really planning to, but left college feeling a little dissatisfied from that meet.
You were inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2017. How were you told?
I think I actually got a call tipping me off, an unofficial call. But then I got an email from, I think it was the athletic director, Dave Roach, congratulating me and you know, asking me if I would accept the nomination. And
Did you have to think that over?
no, it was pretty easy. It's a pretty easy yes.
Yeah.
And it was interesting timing because it was right around, that was all happening at the same time that I was basically getting ready to and flying out to Eugene, Oregon for the Olympic trials in 2016. So it was kind of a world. And that was also the same time that I was being contacted about the job at Manhattan and considering applying for that. So Hall of Fame induction, head coach possibility, Olympic trials were all kind of happening at the same time. So I was feeling on top of the world those couple of weeks when that email came in.
What do you remember most from that day of your enshrinement?
That you know, that cheer section that you asked about, the way my family showed up and my teammates. We had such a great showing for track and field, and I just felt incredibly loved and honored. And so it was I mean, it was also really impressive. It was a gala style, so it was black tie and really fancy. It's the fanciest thing that I had ever attended, I think. And so to be one of the honorees at the fanciest thing I'd ever attended was pretty special. But I had 2 tables of family and friends, and then in addition, I think there were like 2 or 3 tables of teammates there, and so that was really special to just see the way people left. You know, like, we're all well into our lives at that point, and so to put everything aside and come back to celebrate that was really special.
What are your emotions when you see your plaque?
I guess I'm proud of it. I think I see it and I'm like, wow, this was not something I ever dreamed of coming to Fordham. And like, here I am on the wall. I made an impact on the school, I'm grateful that it was able to be reciprocal, because the school made an impact on me. Fordham changed my life and really gave me so much that to see that plaque on the wall in some tiny way, I was able to give back just a little bit. So there's a good deal of gratitude in that feeling too.
Everybody watching this would say you gave back a lot more than just a little bit. After graduation, you moved to Washington, and you ran for various professional teams. In doing so, you developed a reputation as an elite professional runner, winning the mile at the Penn Relays. You won your first European race in Italy and reached the semifinals at the World Championships in Beijing. Took second in the Wanamaker Mile at the Millrose Games. Talk about your running as a pro.
Yeah, it was a slow process to get to the level that was competitive. It's just a completely different world, right? So in college, it seemed like a quicker rise to the top, for at least the top of my world. Out of college, it was 3 years before I was running consistently at a high level. And it was really not until 2015. So I graduated in 2011. I moved down in August of 2011. I went from not making Olympic trials that year in 2012. I missed the standard by like 4 seconds to, in 2015, I'm making a world team, finishing third in the US. It took a lot, between 2012 and 2015, a lot of growing, a lot of learning. Training had to change significantly, a lot more running, a lot more intensity. But it was really a really good experience. I learned a lot about who I am. I learned a lot about what I'm capable of. I learned a lot about belief and trust and faith when things are not pointing towards that success. I would say I had a lot more ECAC final heartbreak moments in those first, 2.5, 3 years of running professionally. It was really not until my third year running that I had a contract that paid my expenses. So, professional is a generous word for my first, 2 to 3 years of running. I was paying my own way to meets. I was hoping to get accepted. I was, paying for half of my shoes. The club team I was on gave me some good support, but I describe it as a very expensive hobby that did lead to professional contracts. It did lead to being one of the top runners in the US, which is not something I'd really ever dreamed of. But yeah, it's really hard to capture that 6 years of running in a few short sentences.
Do you miss that life?
I was just asked this by a recruit the other day, because I have some pictures up in my office, and in some ways, yes. But I also know, firsthand what it takes and what the commitment and the lifestyle choice that is. And I was ready for the next step when I hung up my spikes. So in some ways, there's not really a part of me that wants to go back. But there's there's a big part of me that knows how much fun it was, how much I enjoyed it. And so I just I think that those things are still there, that commitment, that, all that is still there, but now it presents in a different way. It presents in my coaching and being director of the cross country track and field program at Manhattan College. It's not for my own personal career anymore. It's for this program goal. So I'm very grateful for it, but do I miss it to the point that I want to be doing 2-a-days again? No.
For years, you hoped to run in the New York City Marathon, and you finally did when it returned in 2021. It was the first one you ever attempted. And in preparing for our interview, I found that you found company from Fordham along the way.
Yes. It's kind of cool. So I started the race with my teammate, Jackie Privetti. So we ran the first 9 or 10 miles together. And then we ran by a couple of guys that had run on the team when I was there. There were a bunch of Fordham spectators cheering us on as we went. So that was it was a pretty fun day. And there's a reason why I wanted to run New York, because especially being from New York, it's just like, just fun. There's just, you don't even know you forget how many people you know and that you're going to see. And it really lifts you up in some pretty tough moments of that marathon.
You began your coaching career as an assistant at American University, and after 5 years, you returned to New York to take the job at Manhattan. How did that come about? And mind you, we may be bleeping out the word Manhattan throughout the course of this interview, just to let you know. We'll leave it up to the editorial staff to decide that. But tell us about your coaching career, and was that something that you aspired to?
No, yeah, that's a good question. I did not aspire to college coaching. I actually, when I was at American, I got a master's degree in quantitative analysis. So in my mind, I was going to make my way potentially back to finance or something corporate. I liked coaching while I was at American, but I was down there primarily for my own racing and training goals, and that complemented my assistant coaching really well. I was able to. I was running for the head coach. So Matt Centrowitz was the head coach of the team, and he was my coach. And so, the training that they were getting, the athletes, was the same training I was getting, just in the details were different, but the philosophy was the same. So I was able to help I was helping them navigate the training. And I think I saw a lot of value in my being on the staff, but it didn't point towards a career for me. Interestingly enough, I would always say that the only way I would consider coaching after I was done running would be if it was in New York, if it was a school like Fordham, and basically those two things. So then in May of 2016, Marianne Riley, who had been at Fordham for many years, had been recently named the athletic director at Manhattan College. She was a great student athlete at Manhattan College, graduated in the 80s, and was returning home, and she had a distance coach, a head cross country coach, middle distance and distance coach position available. And I guess she remembered me. We had stayed in touch. I don't think I realized that she was following my career so closely. And so she made the call, and she called my coach and a couple of the people. And then my coach actually knew another administrator at Manhattan. And long story short, got on the phone a couple of times, talked through the position, and similar to the quick decision to move to DC and train, because that was not in my plans. I took a job already and was not planning to continue running. There's kind of a quick movement of the heart that I wanted to go down, and there was something kind of similar. And I was like, wow, this is the position. This is the exact position that I said would bring me into coaching if it were to exist. So I applied, and throughout that process, it became more and more clear to me that I felt really drawn to the position, and I felt really well suited for it. So I applied, got the job, and 7 years later, here we are.
When you come back to the Rose Hill campus, what comes to mind?
Oh, everything. I come back, and I remember walking from the dorm to the CAF. I remember walking from the gym back to the apartment after practices. I remember hanging out on Eddie's, running to and from class. It's just the whole experience.
And when you ran to and from class, I'm guessing you were always on time.
I knew exactly. I didn't leave myself a lot of room, and I really capitalized on this skill that I have to run fast.
Who's that blur across Eddie's? Oh, that's Kerri.
That's Kerri.
The floor is yours, Kerri. Sum up your Fordham experience and what you would like to say now to the Fordham community.
Thank you. I want to say thank you for taking me in. Thank you for giving me a space to grow, and thank you for giving me a place that I can always call home. And I hope to provide that for all future Jaspers and any particularly track and field athletes. I still, I make a point to say hello and engage with the Fordham team whenever I see them, because Fordham has been and will always be home in a lot of ways.
Even when they call you a traitor.
Yes. I get it from both sides. It's all good.
Thank you so much for being with us. It's a delight to be with you. Thank you for your consideration in not wearing the color green, and all best wishes to you, Kerri.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And this production has been aided and abetted by Athletic Director Ed Cull, Assistant Athletic Director Kara Field, and the indispensable Joe DeBarry, member of the Sports Information Directors Hall of Fame. As the great Ernie Harwell once said, I think I've done all the damage I can do. Please note, no animals, especially rams, were harmed in the production of this Zoomcast, and that includes the ram that was stolen by Manhattan College and painted green, nor any special effects used. And when all is said and done, there's nothing left to say or do. Thanks so much, everybody, for putting up with me, and we'll see you next time on Ed Randall's Talking Rams.